Hi, everybody. It's Dale Walsh, the Poetic Warrior and of the Mental Health Warriors, and welcome to the show, Straight Sane and Sober with Dale Walsh. And today I'm like very happy to have as my guest a poet and fellow friend, and someone who I call the Apostle of Positivity because his perspective is just like so positive and so great that it's really like a joy to be with him. And I know you'll find his positivity and his perspective just as addictive as I do. So let me do this, and then we'll start the show. Hey, welcome to the show, and I don't even know if I said your name, David. It's David Thompson, the Apostle of Positivity, and we're honored to have you on the show today. And welcome.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dale. I really appreciate your invitation to be here with you today, and I'm just so happy to share this space with you.
Well, thank you. And as is the routine or the ritual, I'll start with one of my own poems, but Dave is going to enlighten us with a couple of his own during the show. So we're looking forward to that. But this one is called The Sun Shines on Me. The sun shines on me because of you, my eternal light of romantic rhapsody, whose primacy of beauty among women cannot be denied, as I admire your form that's gotten me through many a storm. The truth of our amorous intimacy is still in its helpless nursing infancy, which you suckle with maternal breasts as together we anticipate its growth with the jealousy of first time parents. Our meeting is one of undeniable fate, brought about by the guidance of Christ who has watched us both since birth, with eyes of eternal love and concern, which by our pure faith we did earn. Although his devotion is given without condition, our amour is the result of his cognition that the world has need of a perfect couple by which to make its hard reality ideal, as we love scoping only one another.
Thank you for sharing that, Dale. You are a eternal romantic. That I do
I
recognize.
am. It's going to be the death of me, but uh, I try to be a positive romantic too, though. So, used to be like people would tell me that my poetry was dark and deep. Deep I could understand, but dark I could never understand. But I just want just to give the people a little background. David is the third poet of the including myself, of the four poets who are doing a book called Love's Invited Guests, and collectively we're known by Published Poets Unlimited. And the other two ladies who are the poets of the book are Deborah Harrell and Guyana Oganova, who have both been on the show. And I just felt that since the book is coming out very soon, it would be only appropriate to have David. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, David?
Oh, thank you, Dale. Yeah, I'm so grateful to be a part of such a wonderful group as Published Poets Unlimited. Yes, as you said, my name is David Thompson. I live here on Vancouver Island in Canada. Um, Basically, split my time between my creative pursuits, including poetry, of course, and artwork, with more hands-on in terms of some decorative concrete work that I do with a good friend of mine. And really just, exploring my own purpose here on Earth, through the creative expression that I, feel, is basically our purpose, as co-creators here. And really just raising my daughter, whose name is River, who's 8 years old, and being the best father that I can be to her. And yeah, just really just an exciting time. I'm so glad to share it here with you, Dale, and with everyone listening. I know it's tumultuous to say the least, and the really important thing I keep in mind is finding those creative expressions, to really exercise our ability to co-create here on Earth. So and really, I truly recognize, when I, stepped out of my, creative alignment, as a child, through the pressures of, the whole financial, outlook on things, and how, we couldn't really make, a living as an artist. And I'm just so grateful, to have these opportunities to step back into that. And just it's an exciting time to share all of this. So yeah, thank you for having me on today. Yeah.
Well, I'm always fascinated by you, David, because you're always so positive. And where does that come from? I mean, you said that you never had like much money when you were growing up, and I mean, so that did you ever like resent other people because of the money they had, or were you like giving? Were you just like your parents were so good that you didn't think about other people's wealth and everything?
I really didn't think about it too much. I do recognize that, you know, the positivity, the good natured, aspect, all of that is natural. It's just very, very natural. And I do that, there's been times that it's kind of been a little bit shadowed out by, my own doubts about myself. And, it's like those purposeful questions that we all ask ourselves, of the creator, why am I here? And basically, the answer's always been the same. It's just to be the light of, positivity and of love, and just to be that. And, and honestly, I know we all ask those questions often, of a universe, whatever we might want to call it. Why are we here? And, the answer's always been the same for me. So it's been, I wouldn't necessarily call it easy, because, honestly, in this world we live in, there's a lot that can make people, you know, bitter or cynical, and I just totally view it as we don't really have time for any of that. And really, yeah, and it is interesting. I do remember it, for instance, as a child, being around, other people who did show off their affluence or whatever, and the resentment maybe was there a little bit. But really, as you said, to have parents that really, gave me just such a beautiful childhood, growing up in Victoria, a beautiful city here on Vancouver Island, and another, wonderful small town, where my dad lived. It was really just a perfect opportunity to be a kid, really enjoy, my childhood, and really nothing else really mattered. Just it was just yeah, it was pretty straightforward, honestly. It was never, you know, I shouldn't say never, because as many of us have, we struggle with depression, from time to time. And I do very much remember, times in my adolescence where that was a challenge, but more than anything, it was, why does this seem so difficult? Why do I seem so different? And the answer was always the same. It's like, just be, just keep being who you are, and it will all work out. And as time goes on, that becomes more and more apparent, what this world really needs. And it is us to be our authentic selves, and to not doubt ourselves, and just understand that divine workings of things is real. And that whole faith, in ourselves and our hearts, and the fact that we make the right steps, even though they may seem a little jagged from time to time or a little tumultuous from time to time. So no, it's interesting. I do know that it has been a lifelong, thing. It's not like I somehow just stepped into,
Right.
being the apostle of positivity. It's just one of those natural states sort of thing. So, thank you for your question.
Well, you made me think about my childhood, and basically my childhood was split into two separate and distinct parts. Was the first part was when I had like the only swimming pool in my neighborhood in the height of the baby boom. So within like 3 blocks of my house, we had like 25 kids between within 3 to 4 years of my age, and since we had the only pool in the neighborhood, then during the summer, I'll always remember the summers because it was like paradise for me as a kid because I would have like five, 10 people over every day, and I had like the biggest baseball card collection in the neighborhood, and everybody was collecting baseball cards, and we also had a ping pong table, so people would like come over and play ping pong and use the pool. And my mother was like she was a great woman, and she would just like buy like cases of Coke and Dr. Peppers so that whoever wanted a soda could like get it, and then so that was like I mean one thing I always say about Abilene is you know Saturday afternoon they had a triple feature at the downtown theaters with popcorn and cola for $1. So, and but then, but then my mother got divorced and remarried, and I found myself snatched from this idyllic childhood in Abilene, Texas, to like Midtown Manhattan, and it's just like people say, well, that must have been like quite a culture shock, and actually, I was always able to adapt, and I think that's one of the things why my recovery has been so complete from my illnesses. I've always been able to adapt, and I think another point is I know you got a great sense of humor, but I think that a sense of humor is absolutely essential for like a happy life.
Absolutely. That is so key. And being able to laugh at ourselves, first and foremost, is very, very important. And, I definitely recognize in you, Dale, the ability to, change your mind. And that is a true power, that we all hold. And I'm so grateful to be here on the Mental Health Warriors, channel. And, really that power that we have over our own minds is the key, and recognizing that, yeah, we can actually change the way we think of things and react to things. So, I'm very grateful for that. And, it was interesting, uh, and mothers, bringing up our mothers, I get the distinct impression that you had a very supportive mother, and that really made all the difference for me as well. My mom was just, gave her whole, existence to giving me the best childhood possible. So it made the difference. And here on Vancouver Island, there's a lot of things that we would do, together, especially in the summertime, which we're getting back to now. And it's very, very good, very, very good.
So, were you an only child?
Yes, I am an only child. And actually, my parents separated before I was 2. So that was a bit of a disruption at the beginning years of my life, but really, it was really great, and it was basically just me and my mom, and growing up in low income housing, but really, again, I never felt, that sort of, you know, feeling of, oh, we're lacking or we're doing without something, or and really, it was a beautiful place that I did grow up. Right outside my front door was the playground, that all the kids played on, and it was like 10 feet from my doorstep. So it was really, it was really good. It was really good, and and I do recognize that household, where all the other kids come to. And, and that was actually one of the only times I ever, was kind of told by my mom, it's like, we have enough, but we got to just be mindful. And it was when I would invite all of my friends over for dinner, for the let's feed the whole neighborhood, mom. Like, come on. And that was really one of the only times I was ever kind of told, it's like, David, just so you know, like, we have enough, but we don't have enough for everyone. So it was
Right.
just, a great similarity there, Dale. So appreciate that.
Well, love is the ultimate wealth.
That's right. That's right.
So, why don't you recite one of your poems right now?
Oh, I'd be absolutely just delighted to.
So,
My
before you do that, let me just give a little background on Love's Invited Guests. So, I never knew Dave before Guyana actually, and Deborah and I and David like got together to put together this book of poetry, which is hopefully going to be out within the next 2 weeks. And when it does come out, we're going to have all four of us have a round table on the show, but uh, so I didn't know David, or I knew Guyana, and actually Deborah was a classmate of mine in 1973, but we never knew each other when we were going to high school, and it was just like a convergence of coincidences that brought us together. But so Love's Invited Guests has been a 6 month project, or actually 8 months, right? At this point, David,
Yes, that's right.
8 month project where we just wanted to test the boundaries of what poetry books could do, and we're all very optimistic about it. But why don't you go ahead, Dave, and do your poem?
Thank you, Dale. Yes, I'm so grateful for that whole process that we've shared. This poem here isn't actually a part of that collection. It'll be going into another book that we will create, I'm sure. So this is called The Angel of Creation. It is not so that we were left alone long ago, as our first sun's dawning arose, as our first sensing became everything. Our mother is here now, as always. Hear her singing in every song, through lips or beak, or every other sound of joy that is music to our ears. Hear her stories in every wave, on all the shores, in all the winds, on every land. Hear our mother laughing in every bit of our good humor, in everything that is fun. Feel her heart strongly in every beat of our own, in every place we call home. She does not cry, for we do enough. Tears of joy flow aplenty. See them falling in every drop of rain. See them falling from our eyes. Our mother is here now. Feel her holding every hand, caressing every cheek, in every soothing voice. There is nothing to fear. Our mother is here.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
And
Dale.
but and and that's a scene. That's a scene that we both explore. Is like not only our Earth mothers, our physical mothers, but also the idea of the archetypal, Earth mother, universal mother, and how you know you know, Guyana is really big with the Sophia code on mothers and
That,
goddesses and everything. So, but that's beautiful poems. Thank you, David.
oh, thank you. My pleasure. Yeah, that one's written in honor of Archangel Ariel.
Oh, okay. And who's she? Who exactly is she?
Well, Archangel Ariel is the archangel that is the angel of creation, as the stories go, that basically put her hand into the primordial goo, let's call it, and brought life out of that with her divine spark. So
So is this in contrast to the story of Genesis and the creation of the Lord or of God, or is it sort of complementary or what?
I would say complementary. Yeah, that's a kind of a touchy one. Just it actually brought up, for instance, what was the angel that Jesus heard, or some of the other, saints heard, and those angels, they had a big impact on our creation, and Archangel Ariel was definitely one of the forerunners of that. Um, yeah, that's an interesting one. The whole creation, of our species is a real, you know, just a complex sort of story that I think it's hard to just one,
Well, well, of course, it's this is one of the raging conversations that keeps going on in creationism versus evolution. And were we even created? I mean, and but on the other hand, I think there's overwhelming evidence of a God. I mean, he might not be as we conceive him, but just the infinite intelligence with which the universe is created, and and it even gets. Some people say we have a God gene, and so that's why some people believe and some people don't, because some people were born with the God gene, and that. So I really have no answer to that, but uh, my 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 theory has always been that evolution was going on, and then God showed up on Earth and like basically created Adam and Eve, and that made a quantum leap in evolution, and that's where we really took off. But
for
uh,
sure, for sure. And what I love about it so much is it's okay to not have all the answers.
right,
It
absolutely.
actually it actually adds that fact is it's wondrous, it is a wonder that, we're here at all and able to speak the way we do and feel the way we do, so I'm okay with not all the answers being apparent. And honestly, it does add that awe factor, to all of it. And there is so much to it, that I really appreciate, because for instance, evolution is a force, that changing aspect of the entirety of the all, is real. So what is the spark of that? And it is the divine creator energy, so is that, a manifested form in some way? Very hard to say. I know it is in us, and as you said, that God gene, very much felt in a lot of different ways. So
Well, one thing that I think this is my own theory, but uh, you know, Darwin basically said that evolution was a competition and survival of the fittest, whereas actually, as more and more research is done, it's evolution is a cooperation rather than a competition, and the more life forms cooperate, the further they evolve.
absolutely, absolutely. I so appreciate that, Dale. And really compassion, for one another is the driving factor, for evolution. And, you can see it in nature too, and as you said, the species that cooperates, is the one that thrives. And I definitely recognize that as a direction, we're all going as humans, and it's not, more divisiveness, it's more cooperation and compassion for one another and empathy, for what others are going through. And I think we're seeing a lot of really, poignant examples of that in our lives right now. And also, those examples are opportunities, to, stretch that, our own understanding of that. So, it's something I really, think about a lot. And, for instance, my own personal evolution, my own spiritual evolution, is, my primary goal, in life is just to unfold that in its natural way, but as a focus point, not just like letting it flow, or going, because there is, that whole thing about going with the flow,
Right.
but as, a conscious creator of the flow, what does that mean? What are those things that we do, that further that? And what are the things that, cause stagnation or, I don't necessarily believe in moving backwards or anything like that, but, it's just very interesting.
Well, I just, looking at my own life, basically, I had that fulcrum moment, that pivotal moment when I figured out I was God and Dartmouth, and and I got put in a hospital, and my whole evolution was like was totally changed. But ultimately, it's like, I feel, I'm very grateful for everything that's happened because it's all been a process of growth. And I mean, if I don't think I would be happy. Well, this is hard to say because you can never say what if, but I don't see myself as being as having realized my potential to the degree that I did if I just like gone on and like finished Dartmouth and gone on to the one thing I like about one expression I like is, you know, even if you escape the rat race, you're still a rat. So
I do
I'm just like, so I mean, the illness was painful, and there have been like, but it's also been a journey of enlightenment. And you know and and I've also found out that there are limits to the understanding that other people can have of me, and that's a very valuable lesson to learn.
Oh, it is too. It's too. Because as much as we may relate to other people, really we are our own, you know, space here on Earth. And, it's it is that challenge of relation, that really, we know it. I know that for yourself, connected to people and other people you don't feel connected at all with, and, for myself, my experience with, that moment of like, you know, I'm God or, I'm this entity or not. It was, during my adolescence, I distinctly remember the moment, of like walking down the school hallway and just like asking myself, like, why is it that I just don't fit into the cultural norm, or whatever I had
Right.
maybe just described it as, why is that? And I very distinctly remember, the voice saying, because you're an angel. And, and that goes hand in hand with that whole thing with like, we're here as the God creators of our own existence, same thing, and I distinctly remember, well, thinking to myself, well, that's great. I appreciate that answer, but what do I do with that? Where do I take that from here? And it wasn't actually until a few years ago, into my adulthood, that really the answers to that became a lot clearer. And it's interesting how, it was actually the loosening of my own mental confines, for lack of a better way to describe them, that allowed that understanding to really, blossom into who I am today. And it wasn't really until, I was able to say, you know what, it's okay for that, to not fit into what we think is proper or right, or even, possible, really, because that, that whole suspension of disbelief, is so key to, that bridge, between, what we see in front of us to what we feel, in our hearts and in our spirit. So it's so interesting, Dale, and I so appreciate, the parallels to our own stories there, being, that you're twice my age. So
I'm twice everybody's age.
almost,
Let me just
almost.
take this opportunity while before we go on to welcome Deborah, Guyana, Robert Brooker, Jeffrey Berger, Adam and Carrie, I think, are on, Duval, the original mental health warriors. And I just want to say thank you for coming on, and hope you're enjoying the show. And so this is like everybody has their own path, and I mean, when I said I was God, I really meant it as a joke. And then the more I told the more I like thought about it, and the more I was exposed to reality. I meant that there. I'm sure you know about confirmation bias, but confirmation bias. I think it's like the reticular system, active reticular system, but basically it means that whatever you believe, your mind will like find things to reinforce that belief. So say you want to have a red Tesla, and you think you're going to be like unique and have a red Tesla, and then you buy a red Tesla and you start driving around, and everywhere you go, you see red Teslas. And it's just like, but your mind is like a very complex thing, and you are what you focus on. Your intention is your intention. So uh, you know, so basically, I to be honest, David, I've never like stopped believing I'm God. But on the other hand, my concept of what that means is like increased and expanded so much over time. It's just like everybody's God. And everybody's unique. I always used to try to think of myself as unique, and I am unique, but so is everybody else. And when you finally start to realize that, you realize the beauty of the human race.
Absolutely, absolutely. And truly, as you said, we are all that. We really are. And that understanding of what unity actually is, and divine will and creation and how those all go hand in hand, is absolutely amazing and beautiful. And I also very much appreciated what you said about confirmation bias. And I definitely am very aware of that, what we, our intention is put on is what comes to us. I very much am aware of that. And that's another reason why, my positivity will always be like this, because, I know what that brings about. And the same thing with things of angelic nature. It's like that's a big focus of my life, and I know that frequency you know is building in my life. And that frequency, same thing with the we're God, you're God, I'm God, everyone's God. That frequency itself of that creative energy is so powerful and so important. And that understanding that we're unique in ourselves, but very much non-separate. The end of those dualistic viewpoints is so amazing. And I very much feel that in conversations like this, seeing things from different perspectives, but with a unified intention. So it's just absolutely wonderful, and I so appreciate it.
Well, I just oh no. So, what's been your like base lesson from being a father? Having no children myself, I'm always interested in this. But like, what's been your like biggest revelation or two about being a father, and like the responsibility, but also the joy of it? I mean, do you have like any like particular moments in your life where like the joy of the joy of being River's father, like just like jumped out at you? I mean, is there any particular like instance like that, or is it just like all the whole thing is wonderful? I know the whole thing is wonderful, but
No, absolutely, and there's a lot of confirmation that comes my way there too. And really, I recognize my own relationship with my father, when I was a child. And, it's like, I don't like to say, it's like I learned what not to do, but that's kind of part of it, and I think my biggest lesson with being a parent is patience, and that's patience with myself and of course patience with River. But, really that is being like the superpower that we base all of our, and you don't have to be an actual physical parent to be a parent. And,
Right.
that is, kind of a big energy, to tap into, is that, we're all parents, of this earth in our own way too. And,
But we're
really,
also children of the. We're also son and daughters of the, as well as being father and mother.
that's right. That's right. And I know for my relationship with River, I do feel that in her own way, she raises me up too, and just that whole childlike wonder, and goofiness, sometimes very much, just kind of has that ability to bring me out of maybe a bit more of a serious mood that I may or may not be in at that time, and I'm so grateful for that. And, really, I have had some very big, confirming moments, with River, when she says to me things like, Dad, our life is better than any show, and really, from the her generation, where it's all about the shows of like other people's lives. And I do really recognize what that means, when she says things like that, or that, it's I'm the best, father in the galaxy, that means a lot, things like that. And, really, it has been such an amazing experience. And the beauty of it is that with bringing that childhood energy into our lives, in one way or another, it does make us younger, so that's why, a big suggestion or kind of guidance I try to give is do something every day that, makes you feel younger, makes you feel more childlike, really just to focus on, just even if it's one thing, that you would have done as a child, that you really enjoyed, and that's a huge part of it, and just to participate with her, on some of her things, that she's passionate about, and it gets me, for instance, doing art more often, because she's an absolute fanatic about artwork and just loves doing that kind of stuff so much. So, take the time out of what I think of as my busy schedule, just to sit and be still and either, just watch her do her artwork or do my own while she's doing hers. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And yeah, I'm so grateful for all of that experience. And really, it is, absolutely amazing to see her growing up and aging, of course, but also for myself to be feeling younger, as time goes on, just through that whole experience. So, no, it's absolutely beautiful. And, it's, I maybe she'll be interviewed on here one day too.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm around that long,
I'm sure you will be, Dale.
well, uh, yeah, that's a. I mean, what came to my mind when you were talking about that is, people talk about the inner child and how the inner child has to be healed, and like how damaged the inner child is, and that causes all neuroses and psychoses and everything. But I think that you really have to dwell. I'm at basically. I feel like I haven't aged since I got taken away from Dartmouth. I just feel like I basically reached a point, and my mind and my knowledge and my understanding has grown. But as a perception of myself, I still feel like I'm a 20-year-old. And it's just
I
like every time I have a birthday, I had a birthday on May 24th, and it's like am I really 67? And I find that mind blowing. And then I say, but then on the other hand, I say, well, look at all the history you've gone through, and just how I'm a repository of like knowledge from, from my birth, basically. I mean, A lot of my friends in Hackensack call me Dougal instead of Google, because they know they know if they need an answer to any question, they can come to me. So, but I basically I feel like I sort of like stopped my physical self at the age of 20, whereas like my mental self has been going on and for like the last 47 years, and it's just like I don't have an explanation, but as I say, I mean, I just like love younger people. I don't like hanging out with my peers that much, but and because they're all so serious, and I'm really like working to become less serious because I mean, I feel that I used to have a very contagious laugh. I remember one time when I was at boarding school, I just started laughing at something we were watching on the theater. I got the whole theater laughing at my laugh, and I call it the duck laugh. And I feel that like in the course of my therapy and my recovery, I basically lost my laugh, and that's one thing that I want to reclaim.
That's such a good one. Such a good one. And really, there are those times in life that we kind of catch a blueprint, of something that could age us. For instance, for myself, I very much recognize a time in my childhood that I had situations that came up that made me feel much older, and I kind of had to step into an older role, than my years. And I very much recognize, that stuck with me for a very, very long time, and it again hasn't been until recently or more recently that I've kind of bridged that and gone back to those moments and really, had a solid look at, what that felt like at that time to be, a young teenager and have, just certain things come up where it was like, damn, I feel old, and really, how that stuck with me, that whole mentality of, being an old soul or what have you, it very much can make us seem older than our years. And, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that when it's, based on experience, but when it's based on feeling, and mental, mind space, that's where I do really feel that, bringing those bridges of our childhood back in, and as you said, healing the inner child, very, very important, going back to those moments that, were very triggering as children, and really, allowing ourselves those moments of, forgiveness, is a huge one, really, our higher selves, ability to forgive, is so key. And and that's been huge. Like there's so many ways that we are able to do that and heal those traumas. It's basically whatever fits the bill is what I recommend. So so interesting.
Well, one thing that I've tried to do is refuse to be traumatized. I mean, I remember when I was in Oklahoma City one time, I went to see my mother shrink. She saw a shrink for 50 years. So basically, people say I was her caregiver like her whole life and everything, but I'm not aware of that. But basically, I went to see her shrink in Oklahoma City, and I told my story to him. Only time I ever saw him, and he says at the end of the session, "You've been traumatized by your therapy."
Oh,
So
exactly,
I
exactly.
mean, so a lot of time, I mean, I've been hospitalized 15 times, and the last 6 times I admitted myself to the hospital. But basically, there were times when I really felt that I was like reaching a new level of awareness and clarity and enlightenment. I would be put in the hospital and like shot full of drugs, and it was just like, okay, let's go back to square one. And it was so frustrating. But on the other hand, that was my path, and I mean, I used to say to myself, people don't realize how advanced you are, Dale, and it's just like, just waiting for people to catch up with me, and so that they won't be, overwhelmed when I say, stuff like I'm God, which I don't say anymore. I really feel I've learned that I'm not God, and but I am of God essence, and that's the difference.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that whole like going back to square one thing is really interesting because I do recognize that's kind of the medicine they suggest is like going back to some point, and a lot of the other modes of healing or therapy do the same thing, and really it's interesting as well how you said, Dale, that whole like life for other people to catch up to you, and I very much recognize that in my own journey as well, and that feeling as well. So just very interesting. I'm I and as you said, you are God essence, and that's what spirit is in my mind,
Right.
and it's really, important to separate ego a little bit, from those moments, just you know, to be able to empathize, in a real way. So I very much recognize that too. So it's all
Well,
just such an
the irony of therapy a lot of times is that therapy like takes you back to a place. Well, once you're getting out of the cave of like depression and despair and everything, therapy a lot of times is just an instrument by which you're brought back to the past where you're miserable instead of living in the present where you're happy.
exactly, exactly, and
But
the
That-
the word
That's
that comes
that's the difference between therapy and coaching that I see is that therapy takes you looks at your past and tries to fix it, whereas uh, coaching looks at the future and tries to make it the best possible.
absolutely, absolutely, and the word that very easily came to my mind as you were saying that, Dale, was surrender.
Right.
And surrender, it isn't about giving in necessarily, but really just like giving up all of those constricting mental states, and as you said, it's not about fixing the past. The past is the past, but this moment, to really just give it up, just give up all of that, and that's some of the most difficult to do, but so worthy of it, worthy of our focus.
Well, that's actually been one of my biggest struggles is giving surrendering because but I want to remain in control, but on the other hand, I understand that I'm not in control. But the more I feel I'm in control, the happier I am. And this might be part of my God delusion or whatever. But just this idea that you know, I understand that surrender and let go and let God is the way to go. But I just find it very hard to do because I've always like had to rely on myself for my own sanity, and I always felt that if I didn't stay in control, I would lose my sanity, and I would like end up in a long-term hospital for the rest of my life on some back ward. And that was like my feeling for about 15 years, and luckily I've got out of that. But it's only pretty recently, like in the last 3 to 5 years, that I've really like gotten to a point where I'm not worried about like being judged psychotic for the things that I say.
Absolutely, and that truly is the greatest challenge of life in my mind, is the realization of what our control actually is, and really, it's very small amount, that we actually have over, our surroundings, and really it's all internal, that control of, how do we react to things, those, diagnoses, for instance, a big one, how do we react to them, and people are given those all the time, for one thing or another, and what is the reaction, and a lot of times it's just, you're sold it, whatever doctor or shrink or whatever has told you this thing that you're expected to believe of them because they're a highly trained professional,
Right.
and it's like, why don't you? But really, that is our control. And outside of that, I honestly, it just makes me laugh to myself sometimes, realizing, you know, just to let go of that control, and how freeing it is. And, not easy, very, very much not easy, especially when we have things that we desire, outcomes that we desire, things that we want to see come to fruition. Of course, we want to control them and we want to have that happen, and that's where that whole, faith in things like divine timing, the everything happens. There's certain, you know, mantras, as for lack of a better word to describe them, like everything happens for a reason, even though we may not understand it at the time, and really that all just does lead us to this moment, what the next step is. So it's so interesting that conversation about what control is, what we can control is such an important one, to have internally. And I so appreciate, your story with that, Dale, because it's a big one. I think honestly yours is a drastic, example of that, so it's really is amazing.
Well, the thing that came to my head is actually I can't. Uh, I Oh, well, the control is, you can only control what you feel and you can only control yourself, and that's like the bottom line. And so, but on the other hand, people say everything outside you is a reflection of your internal. So, it's sort of like, uh, well, okay, I'll control my internal, and hopefully the external will be better, but there's no guarantee because you always have those doubts and everything. Oh, I know
Absolutely.
what to say about diagnosis and doctors and everything. I mean, it's one thing to be told you're sick by a doctor, but when everybody that you love around you is telling you that you're sick and everything, that's really like the bottom line where you really have to come to terms with it.
For sure, for sure. And as you say, that ability that we have to, not react, to things, especially those sorts of things. Like when family, for instance, is like, trying to paint so readily that brush of, whatever that identity they feel that we have, and then to just stand aside from that, and really, this is where the silent observer, steps in and just really, what does that feel like? And it's absolutely amazing. I know, just certain things, and I'm sure for you, Dale, you had a lot of that, experience where your family was probably told what your diagnosis was, and they did their best to kind of keep you in that space, and
It's
I
still
know.
going on, Dave.
No, I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. So yeah, it's interesting.
I I remember. Yeah, the reason I came to the program in the first place, when I got out of the hospital, my first hospital, I just wanted to go down to Oklahoma City and work sewer pipelining, which I'd been doing for the previous 2 summers, and then go back to Dartmouth. But everybody told my family that I had to be around peers, and I was sick and everything. So the thing that really like made me decide to come to the program was it was Christmas time, and my sister was wrapping presents in New York City, and so basically she got up to take a break, and she like sat down in the chair, and I was with her. And now this is my only real sister, the only sister who has been through everything with me: three fathers, two mothers, etc., etc. And so she just like threw her arms around me and said, "Please go to the program." And she started crying on my shoulders. So it was like, that was like a heartbreaking moment. But I said, "Okay, I'll go." It's just like, and obviously it's changed my destiny, my life. But on the other hand, I really feel as a person I am finally where I was meant to be at this time in my life. Even though I might not have a house, I might not have great wealth or anything, but I'm also feeling that I'm on the verge of like achieving all the goals that I had when I got taken away from Dartmouth. Even though it's 47 years later, it's like time doesn't wait for anybody. Time waits for no one. But on the other hand, time gives you a chance. If you don't die, to like really rectify the things that have changed you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the truth of it is it's never too late. Even you know, and that whole premise of what death is. It's just never too late. It's there's no ending. It's not like, and then this could just be me, but I don't view our lives as this book, that's open until the curtain goes down and then the two hands come together and the book closes. It's that's not how I look at it at all. I I know we're getting close to the end of our time, Dale. I was hoping I could share another poem that I
Oh,
thought.
sure. I'm sorry. Yeah, we go on. I'd love to hear another poem.
Yeah, I feel it'll
We'll
very
wrap
much fit.
with this.
Perfect. This one is in our wonderful book, Love's Invited Guest, and it was written just in a absolutely beautiful time in my life. A very freeing time, and it's called Armor's End. Today I remove my helmet for the last time, placing it in a space of honor for the protection it has offered. No longer will it constrain my vision or shade my eyes from seeing clearly. Will you witness the hanging of my shield, placed in remembrance of all battles fought, lost and won, still gleaming? Can you see the cracks deepening, widening with every moment? See as my heart is laid bare for you, able to shine so fully where once it was steeled away, impenetrable. I lay down my sword before you, bowing in complete surrender. This is my armor's end. I accept all healing of every scar, once so deeply cut. Now transformed, whole again, I am healed.
Well, I don't think there's much more we can say after that. Uh, Except, thank you very much for coming on the show, David. And I think that people have really been enlightened by this. And I always like it when I get a chance to talk a little with the guests too. So thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. And just we have a little less than 2 minutes. So any parting thoughts that you'd like to share, or how people can get in touch with you, or
Absolutely. I am completely open to people contacting me, probably through Facebook. David Thompson would be the best way, or my email, dgothompson@gmail.com. Yeah, and absolutely such a pleasure as always speaking with you, Dale. And, I'm glad we were able to have a conversation today. And really, that was my hopeful outcome for all of this, too.
well, thank you very much, and I'll keep you informed, everybody, about the progress of the book. It's its final formatting and everything, but I think you'll really enjoy it, and we're hoping to start a poetic revolution with it. That might be a little grandiose, but grandiose is where I always come from. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much, and thank you,
Thank
David.
you. Thank you, Dale. Thank you.